So, welcome EDU 540 to week 10. We only have a few more weeks together, and oh my gosh, your work has been so wonderful. I really appreciate everything you've done. Um, I'm going to send out a couple of announcements this week just to keep us up to date because the last couple of weeks have been a little bit tough for me in order to be able to communicate with you more directly. But at any rate, let's get to the meat of the argument here, the meat of the thing. First of all, your practice journals. My suggestion for your practice journals is you take a look at those prompts right after you finish your school day. So once you've met with teachers, met with students, and it's the end of the day, take a look at those prompts and see which one of those might apply to you. And I would write at that time so your thinking is fresh and so that you're able to make sense of your experiences based on Johnston's book. So we're going to see what those are like week 9, and I'll be getting back to you about those. But think about writing directly after school. Today we're going to talk about description very briefly, hopefully, but obviously when I get started, and particularly about writing, I can go on and on. The first thing I want to do is recommend some books, actually 3 books that I was able to pull down from the mentor texts in Tompkins 2012. And they are these. This is one of them. It's called Zoom, although it's backwards. But what's very cool about these books is that they're just picture books, but they carry a little bit of a narrative in them. So you can give these to students and have them describe the different pictures that they see, which are all very interesting and well done. So that's Zoom. This is Train Stop, which sort of uses some of the same ideas and gives you these pictures that you can have your students describe and create narratives about. And finally, there's this book, Oops, which I also really enjoy. Did I tell you I'm going to have a grandchild in a couple of weeks? Yeah, I'm going to give all these books to my grandchild. So these are really interesting books that you can use for description that can give your writers and your students thoughts about how to make description work. So I wanted to put a plug in for those. Just to go on to talk about description a little bit and what's important to keep in mind about description. Tompkins and the Rascal chapter 4 are really very vivid examples of description. Tompkins gives you a lot of good information. And a lot of what we're going to talk about is based on Tompkins, but I want to look at things a little bit more from the perspective of a writer, as well as a teacher of writing. All these things are applicable to your students. All the things we do, obviously, in the course are applicable to your students in some way. So I think those 5 techniques that Tompkins talks about are very important to keep in mind. Some of those are echoed in a few of the videos that I put on for you this week. So using specific information, attending to word choice, and I use that word attend very specifically and very directly, because what you want to do with word choice is pay attention. Go down through and choose. Look at those words and choose the exact word, the best word, the most vivid word. When we get there, we'll talk more. Use sensory images. This is how we get information as human beings. Right? Our nose, our eyes, our ears, our touch, our taste. Those are the ways we look into the world. And this is the way we operate in the world. So using sensory images when you create descriptions can be very important. Figurative language. Here we're playing with language a little bit, using poetic language, and also trying dialogue out, because dialogue can give us a sense of place and a sense of time. So as far as specific information is concerned, we can really start with the senses. And what does the scene actually look like, sound like, taste like, smell like? Be concrete. This is something that, because we spend so much time in academia and in college writing conceptual essays, writing about abstractions, we fail to be concrete. And even in our abstract writing, the more concrete we are, the more exact and precise we can communicate to our audiences. So here's an example of what I mean. Show what it's like and don't tell what it's like. So be thinking about those words. Name your characters, think about personalities, identify the where and what it really is like, where it is on the planet or where it is in our imagination so that we can picture that. And a good way to start this off is just to list attributes. So when you think about a description, think about a place, think about a person, brainstorm or free write descriptors before you draft. Attend to word choice. So pay attention to the words you're using. Again, use specific persons, places, and things. Make them concrete. Use vivid verbs. Verbs are really critical in writing because they propel writing, they move writing. That's where the movement is in writing. So thinking about the exact verb, in terms of walking, sauntering, jigging and jogging, using that kind of language to better describe what it is, exactly how a person is moving through space. Colorful modifiers, adverbs, and adjectives. These you might brainstorm at all, also, and have your students brainstorm. Tompkins has a great list in her book that you can certainly utilize to start things off and start these discussions. Choose the best word, don't overuse them. You're not going to create a whole list of adjectives or adverbs. Use the best one or two that precisely describe what you're talking about. Get in the habit of using a thesaurus. I don't know how many of you use this whenever you're writing. Maybe you do, and I would really encourage it. I would buy a thesaurus, like a paper copy, rather than only rely on Microsoft or the word processing documents that you get with Apple. And look for other words to describe, to use in place of what you're actually conveying, and play with that a little bit so that you get the exact and precise words. And finally, don't use tired language that's been used and overused in your writing. Use sensory images. So we can go back to this again and again. This is a critical feature of description. So keep in mind, be asking these questions about how that sense is appropriate in that piece of writing. Try figurative language. So here we're starting to play a little bit poetically, looking at metaphors, looking at similes, looking at personification, onomatopoeia, crash, bang, crack, boom, splash, using those kinds of words because they convey a pretty exact and precise sense of what that word is like. Play with different idioms. Tompkins talks about idioms like under the weather, which still has a kind of a, I don't, it has an effect, right? It still has, it's not quite tired out, but rewrite some of those idioms and play with them a little bit. And finally, don't exaggerate unless you're writing satire or writing something that recommends hyperbole. And finally, try dialogue out. For example, for this week's workshop group, I'm having you describe a home where you've lived. Well, maybe you remember some dialogue. Maybe you remember something being said at some point or at some place in that description and in that place that you're going to be writing about. Use it. And the word said is good. Hemingway wrote said like millions and millions of times in his text, but are there other words for said, like whispered, keened, words like that? Think about utilizing those as well. And obviously you want to punctuate correctly and the period goes inside the quotation marks. Okay, so I'm going to stop my share and I'm going to move along. I'm going to let you go. Thanks a lot. Again, I'm looking forward to the week, and hopefully you'll enjoy yourselves writing about description, and you'll enjoy some of the challenges that I've left you for this week, week 10. So I'll see you later. Thanks a lot for being with me, and we'll see you soon and see you again, and keep writing.